Okay, we've got our quorum, so I think we're good. Secretary, welcome. We're going to start with you and your team on Senate Bill 248. And why don't you tell us who you have with you, and then we can let you do your thing, okay? So.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm joined by Megan Music, our legislative liaison, and Sarah Fleming, the Deputy Secretary for the Department of Service and Civic Innovation. Okay. And we'll kick it off with Ms. Music, if that's
excellent. All right. Okay, again, everybody, we're on Senate Bill 248.
Good morning, Chair Feldman, and honorable members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. For the record, my name is Megan Music. I serve as the Legislative Civic Innovation Specialist at the Maryland Department of Service and Civic Innovation. We come to you today proposing a cost-neutral enhancements to the SERVE Act that would improve the efficiency of program operations. In 2023, the General Assembly passed the SERVE Act, which established the Maryland Core Program with two key pathways. The first pathway is the Young Adult Service Year Option pathway, which is open to Maryland high school graduates who have graduated within 3 years. And this is also commonly referred to as the Service Year Option. Then we have the Maryland Service Year Option pathway. And this pathway is open up to anybody 18 years or older and is also commonly referred to as the Maryland Core Program. Senate Bill 248 is the first departmental bill since our department's creation and is based on lessons learned from our first 2 classes. This bill is making 5 key operational changes and 3 minor technical updates to improve efficiency, accessibility, and sustainability. These changes will be streamlining funding, updating wage requirements, expanding eligibility, and aligning statutory language with current operations, all without a fiscal impact. Secretary Montero will be speaking to expanding eligibility for the Young Adult Service Year Option pathway, updating salary requirements, and aligning residency requirements. Deputy Secretary Fleming will be speaking to consolidating the program funds, striking the Maryland 529 plan option. The 3 minor technical changes are removing the inactive Executive Fellows Program, renaming the Governor's Volunteer Council to the correct name of the Governor's Commission on Service and Volunteerism, and lastly, formally integrating the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteerism into the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, reflecting all current operations. The Department of Service and Civic Innovation urges a favorable report, and thank you so much for your time and consideration this morning.
Okay, thank you. We'll just go through anybody else who's going to present, and then we'll take questions, okay?
Great. Thank you, Ms. Music. And again, good morning, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and honorable members of the committee. My name is Paul Montero, and I have the privilege of serving as the Secretary for the department. And I'm here to express my strong support for Senate Bill 248. I do want to note in the audience behind me, we're joined by Aaron Dolland, the Director of the Service Year Option, here with the pretty scarf. The bill makes key updates to improve fairness and access within the Maryland Core Program. The first is expanding eligibility for the Young Adult Service Year Option pathway. Currently, the pathway is limited to those who have graduated from high school or earned a high school diploma equivalent within 3 years of applying. This bill would expand the age range to 18 to 24 instead of 18 to 21 to better support opportunity youth, helping them gain workforce experience and civic engagement opportunities. Secondly, updating salary requirements to ensure fair compensation. The bill ties wages to the higher of either the state or county minimum wage, accounting for cost of living variations across Maryland in jurisdictions where the minimum wage may be higher than the state's. And then third, aligning residency requirements. The Maryland Service Year Option pathway currently prioritizes Maryland residents but does not require it. And this bill moves the prioritization to a requirement, ensuring both pathways are available exclusively to Maryland residents. These 3 updates strengthen our workforce development pipeline, increase access to service opportunities, and ensure long-term sustainability. And I ask that you have a favorable report on SB 248.
Good morning, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and honorable members of the Education, Energy,
pull the mic just a little closer.
And Environment Committee. I'm Sarah Fleming, Deputy Secretary of the Maryland Department of Service and Civic Innovation. I'm also here in support of SB 248. The remaining 2 operational changes include critical funding adjustments that improve efficiency and financial flexibility. The first is consolidating the program funds. SB 248 merges the two separate funding streams, the Maryland Service Year Option Pathway Fund and the Young Adult Service Year Option Pathway Fund into a single program fund. This consolidation allows us to better allocate resources without requiring additional general funds. This also reflects how we operate the overall program as one program with two pathways. The second is removing the Maryland 529 plan option. In statute, the department was required to provide the option for members to receive their $6,000 completion awards through a Maryland 529 account. However, after thorough consultation with Maryland 529, we learned that only account owners can deposit funds in their accounts and that the funds are taxable, making it operationally impossible for our department to make these deposits. SB 248 removes this option. We do want the committee to know that even with striking this from statute, the department is committed to continuing our partnership with Maryland 529 in assisting members in opening accounts and understanding that higher education is still a supported next step after completion of the program. These changes maximize operational flexibility and ensure participants can access their benefits seamlessly. I urge you to support SB 248. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Secretary, you mentioned earlier when you were in my office, we all know first in the nation program of its kind and came out of this committee, but Utah is now following suit. Are there some other states that are looking at Maryland as a model on this topic? You mentioned Utah specifically.
Yes, sir.
Any other states looking to duplicate what we're doing here?
Absolutely. The state of New York has also followed suit in creating their Empire State Corps. The state of New York is also following suit. They've launched the Empire State Corps last year. There's several other states that we've been providing technical assistance to as they've explored creating their own service year option, and Deputy Secretary Fleming has been involved in a number of those conversations. Other states?
Pennsylvania specifically is one that's exploring further.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to start with Vice Chair Kagan and then Senator Augustine.
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
thank you. He never sees me because I'm sitting right to
hard, yeah,
his right, so I'm always like, so thank you all and congratulations. I also see Tess in the audience and she's awesome and your whole team just does remarkable work. Mr. Secretary, congratulations. You've done a remarkable job and put together a great team and wonderful, thoughtful, engaged people are part of the program. So I wonder, before going on, if you're involved in this program, a graduate or in any way connected, do you want to stand up? Do we have some of the young people here? No, okay, those are not here with you. Okay, I just wonder whether you could tell us about the percentage of the number of applications and the percentage of folks you're able to admit to the program. Is the demand there? And then secondly, how many different employers do you have now as you're continuing to expand and grow?
Great. Well, thank you very much for the kind words, Vice Chair Kagan. And your help has been indispensable in growing the program. We have, and our CIO is here, Isaac Frumkin, a member of the DREAM team. So keep me honest. The number of applications we received, I think, surpassed the 2,400 mark for 500 seats, 500, 600 seats. So we're definitely seeing demand, and that's part of the genesis of the eligibility tweak we're hoping to make, because we're seeing a lot of demand from 22-year-old, 23-year-old, 24-year-old individuals in Maryland who are looking for an opportunity like this. And then the number of employers are now over 200. And our partnerships team continues to court and develop relationships with the nonprofit community, the for-profit community, and public agencies. I was over in a senator's office who has a service year option member serving in Senator McCrae's office, helping with draft all sorts of correspondence for him. So we're trying to be a pipeline into public service as well.
I love that. And can you just confirm for my colleagues, we are in the participants are from all 24 counties and represent the full diversity of the state of Maryland?
Absolutely. I'm proud to say that this team worked so hard to ensure that the second cohort reflected every county in Baltimore City. So we have Maryland truly represented in the second class.
Perfect. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator Augustine.
Thank you, Chair Feldman. I just, want to congratulate Secretary Montero and the team, like my colleague, Senator Kagan, you're doing really amazing work and really grateful for it. I love seeing the folks in their red shirts out in the community and providing service, and they're doing it, and so I just want to say, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Augustine. Appreciate your support as well.
Okay, so far it's a love fest. This is all good. Okay, Senator Washington.
Fast, but I do actually have a question. Great. And we met to discuss the bill, so, a supporter, I don't have any issues. This is raising the issue of the $6,000 stipend and the original intent of having it be an academic or educational stipend. So could you share with the committee, or what are your thoughts about if we can't make that connection with 529, how can we ensure that we are investing in their future? And while immediate needs of $6,000 could really go to something that's immediate, its intent is to invest in the future. So any thoughts about what we could do to help if 529 can't do it? What is there another mechanism we could use?
I thank you very much for the support and the question, Senator Washington. I think part of the program design we've built in and will continue to invest in is, as we convene our members for professional development consistently on a monthly cadence, we're often convening them on a campus, a 2 or 4 year college, to expose them to the admissions office of financial aid staff, to understand this is a place with certain offerings that may be a good fit for you. The Maryland 529 team has often presented to our members to go deeper on how to structure an account and set up an account, the benefits of doing so. And thank you for visiting one of our sessions at Loyola University last cycle. And so we do think, and just last week, we brought the entire cohort together on the campus of Washington College in Chestertown to use our professional development days as a way to expose them to college or higher ed generally as a next step for them. But open to other ideas as we want to keep higher ed in front of them for sure.
One other thing I'd mention today, actually, we have a session with our members about utilizing financial aid and how to look at scholarships and those kinds of things. And then we've had a few schools offer to match the $6,000. So I think that's something we can continue to expand, is other schools that could offer additional incentives for that.
Question. Perhaps I'd like to better understand what was you're removing the 529. What was the service going to? Were you going to open an account and deposit what amount of money, and how? What was supposed to happen that? What you imagine would happen that you weren't able to do?
Sure. The full amount was planned to deposit into the 529 account, the $6,000. However, due to the federal tax restrictions and the account requirements, that was not possible.
Right. And so, so without this, what would happen now to the money?
The member themselves could deposit it directly into the 529 account. The department just can't do so on their behalf.
So would the member would the member get a $6,000 check, or how does it? What happens?
Yes, a $6,000 check, but that is taxed.
Right. Well, I think I'd like for us to, or for you to, we could figure out a way that money could go somewhere where it would not be considered income, which also, if any of them are receiving any type of state benefits or entitlements, that additional $6,000 could make them not eligible, them or their families. So I think we definitely don't want that to happen. So I think as a part of passing of this bill, we have to, I would like to see us, and I work with you to ensure that that doesn't happen. So, great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, additional questions for the panel? Senator Hester.
Thank you. And I would add my congratulations for a program that everybody wants to join, obviously. I'm just trying to understand the fiscal note, because I noticed, Mr. Secretary, you started off saying it was budget neutral. And the fiscal summary is saying potential significant decrease in general funds and expenditures due to fund transfers and diminished reversions. And I tried to quickly skim, but it's like, can you just simplify what's going on with the funding?
Absolutely. So currently, right now, we have a single program, and under each program, we have two pathways, or under the program, we have two pathways. So we have the Maryland Corps program or the pathway and the service year option pathway. Each of those have a separate funding stream that are restricted to only be used for that pathway. And so what we are proposing with the funding flexibility and consolidation of the funding is to be under the single program and not constrained to each pathway. And so with that ability, then we have access to the entire pool of funding that we receive. So it's not, again, restricted to each pathway, therefore allowing us to utilize the full value of the funding we receive due to the increase of demand that we're receiving.
And I would just add the reduced administrative burden on separating out the two pathways is where we would see the efficiencies and reduce general fund commitment.
Okay. Good. Any additional questions for the panel? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 248. And I'm going to turn it to the Vice Chair. I'm going to present the next bill, Senate Bill 9, and I'll
Thank
be
you very
the
much.
witness.
Thank you all. Next up, as Chair said, Senate Bill 9, Maryland Higher Education Academic Program Approval Revisions. And Mr. Chair. Colleagues, we do have written favorable testimony in our packages.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Let me just lay out the bill in a nutshell. We obviously had a lengthy discussion on the first day of session about reducing the number of the bills in the Senate. It's one of the byproducts of having 561 bills in a committee like we did last session, 361 Senate bills, 200 House bills. And then when you get to sine die, it gets, quite frankly, pretty chaotic, and some things inevitably fall through the cracks. So last session, the House Appropriations Committee and this committee heard cross-file bills, Senate Bill 1022 and House Bill 1244, which sought to revise MHEC, the Maryland Higher Education Commission's program approval process for new academic programs. And it was intended, those two bills were intended to implement the recommendations made by the program approval work group that was co-chaired by Senator King on our side, Delegate Stephanie Smith on the other side. Senator Watson actually was a member of that task force. The task force, the work group, I should say, was staffed by Stacey Goodman. We passed Senate Bill 1022 out of our committee in the full Senate. House Appropriations Committee passed House Bill 1244, not in an identical posture. And so not in the same posture as our bill, Senate Bill 1022 exactly. So the House and Senate came together, came up with a compromise conference committee report that made its way to the floor on sine die, along with a lot of other bills. Now, the conference committee report passed the Senate 47-0, passed the House 132-3. This is, again, all on sine die. Shortly after we acted, the two chambers, we noted it was discovered there was a clerical error in the conference committee report language which deviated from the compromise that had been intended. So there was an attempt to scramble to put together a corrected conference committee report, and we were working on getting the conferee's signature late sine die, but couldn't get it adopted by both chambers before midnight, which is why we have this emergency committee corrective bill, Senate Bill 9, which is being cross-filed in the House by Chair Barnes on the House side. I would note that after session, Chair Barnes and I did send a joint letter to MHEC, to Secretary Rye, explaining what had happened. And so this bill is intended to just memorialize what was in that letter, but what was intended to have been in the conference committee report that night, sine die. As for the specifics of the work group report recommendations or the conference committee report that we had and we voted on, I'd be happy to field some questions. As I said, Stacey staffed the work group that came up with the recommendations, and she might have to assist me if you have some specific questions. So that's in a nutshell what Senate Bill 9 does. I view this as a committee corrective bill to take into account what happened on sine die with the clerical mistakes. And again, the House is aligned, and the bills that have come in from Chair Barnes and I are identical.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. On page 4, it seems like one of the most substantive aspects of the bill, and thank you for the history, is in addition to public senior higher education institutions, this adds private nonprofit institutions of higher education. Could you just share with the committee the implications of that and why that was added?
If you don't mind, Stacy, could you yield, I'll yield to Stacy. I think she could probably answer more fully.
One of the recommendations of the Program Approval Work Group Committee was that there needed to be more notice given to all the institutions about these graduate level programs being considered at an earlier stage than the stage at which they now send an application or a proposal to MHEC. So what this process does, this letter of intent, would require any of the institutions in the state here to send this letter saying, we're looking at these programs, kind of here's what we're considering much in advance so that people have notice. And then if they need to collaborate or if somebody else is working on them, there's just more time given in the process. So again, at the time, there was some consideration as to whether the privates would not be included, but it was determined that it was best that they did be included.
Thank you, Stacy Goodman, for that explanation for all that you do for this committee and the General Assembly. Senator Washington?
And Madam Chair, I can just add that, I have both public and private institutions, and there was some very similar, now there's coordination, but the need for both public and private, particularly they're within a similar service area and content is very, very necessary. So I just want, there's real life examples of why we need to do this. So, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if you mentioned this is an emergency bill for anybody who's watching
Correct.
at home.
Yes, emergency bill. This was again supposed to have been enacted on sine die,
April.
and so that's emergency status.
Thank you. I see no other questions for the chair. Thank you. That completes the hearing on Senate Bill 9. And next up,
I asked for a favorable
I was gonna do that. I think I saw Senator Washington, the other Senator Washington, Alonzo Washington, Senate Bill 82. Welcome to our committee. You may either place, and handing it back to the chair.
Senator A. Washington, the other Senator Washington. We're on Senate Bill 82, and you take all the time you need to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, this is Senator Alonzo Washington here to speak on Senate Bill 82. This bill seeks to prohibit county boards of education from charging fees to certain students for enrolling in or completing designated college preparatory programs. It also aims to prevent public higher education institutions from imposing fees on specific high school graduates for college admissions applications. Overall, the bill addresses policies related to the costs for college preparatory programs and college applications process. As you know, we're in an era of our families and economic opportunities right now for students who are trying to enter into college, and there are so many different barriers to enter into college at the moment, and one of them is the college application. The college applications range anywhere from $100 to $500 for undergraduate or graduate admissions. I believe anyone in the state of Maryland who is applying for a college should not have to pay for that application fee. We should make sure that we eliminate the barriers to access college, no matter if you are a need-based student or someone in our middle class. College access is really important, and in order to be successful in this economy, most students either decide to go to college or some don't. And so we got to make sure when a student does believe that it's their time to go to college, that we make it accessible for them. And so I'm asking that this committee pass this legislation to eliminate the college application fee for students who want to attend college. The preparatory programs, as in IB or AP courses, I'm asking that we make sure that those courses are not they don't have to pay for those courses at all under this bill. I believe that's also another strain for our students who actually go into AP and IB courses, and I'm asking for those to be eliminated as well. For these reasons, Mr. Chairman, I ask for a favorable report on SB 82.
Okay, thank you, Senator. We'll take some questions. Again, we're on Senate Bill 82. Okay, seeing none, thank you. We do have signed up one unfavorable, Candace Caruso? I apologize if I botched your name up.
Good morning.
Candace, signed up unfavorable, and you're going to be on the clock. 2.5 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. My name is Candace Carrico. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the University System of Maryland office. As part of my work, I meet regularly with campus admissions and enrollment management officers. The USM is committed to broad and affordable student access to public higher education. This committee may have reviewed reports over the summer that the USM institutions submitted describing their work across the state to recruit students from under-resourced communities. The USM has also described our efforts to provide need-based institutional aid. All of our institutions provide application fee waivers, and through a variety of avenues, including through the College Board and the Common App's fee waiver program. Indeed, when a student receives a fee waiver through the Common App, the university pays a fee. The student doesn't pay anything. Application websites make fee waiver information prominent and easy to find, so students with financial needs, such as those who are Pell eligible, are protected from paying an application fee. But the students who can afford to pay the application fee, we do ask them to pay for it, and you'll notice there's a hefty fiscal note on this bill, upwards of probably $3 million. It's a difficult year to cut any source of incoming revenue. Last year, the USM took a cut, and we will take a deep cut this year, and we understand the need to take those cuts, and we support moving forward to make the state stronger, but this is not a time when we believe we can make applications free and cut this source of revenue. In addition, when institutions have no application fee, there are processes that need to change. There's an increased risk of bots applying for aid, so you have to make accommodations so you don't get fake admits. And it also makes it harder to analyze yield. So again, you have to spend more time and money to analyze to see who's really coming, because when it's free, students who aren't as committed are more likely to apply. So while the USM supports the intent to make college and college applications accessible to all, the costs at this time make the bill unaffordable to our institutions, and we therefore respectfully request an unfavorable report on SB 82. Thank you for your time.
Okay, do we have questions for Ms. Carrico? We've got Senator Washington.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your work for the system. I just want to understand your testimony. If a student is Pell eligible and they're applying, are they automatically waived, or does the student have to still request it?
They have to request it, I believe, and so there are a number of different avenues by which this might happen, starting with their discussion with the high school counselor who may be aware of someone, for example, is in a farms program, that there are ways to have waivers for the SAT as well as college applications. A lot of our institutions use the Common App, and there it's a checkbox. It's pretty easy for them to, I believe, identify when they are looking for a waiver. And the institutions put this information on their websites very prominently, so while the student, I believe, has to ask, they make it as easy as possible for them to make that request.
Just a follow-up. So I think I understand having it be need-based, and certainly understand the fiscal note, but I also see some value in ensuring or having a process by which those who are who are eligible are able to automatically not be assessed. So would you be willing to think about a way in which, if there's a certain income level, or if there's another thing that they're eligible for, that they are just not assessed that?
I think so I don't want to speak to all the campus processes. So I hear you, and yes, and I think that there are, depending on a number of other factors, there might be an easier way through for some students. I mean, I know that we have at least one institution where, you have like 40% of the students may receive a fee waiver. There are others where they don't charge a fee. So the institutions work very hard to work with their student applicant pools to make that as painless a process as possible.
Just one more follow-up. I think it would be helpful if we know what percent of eligible students apply for the waiver. So if it's the case where it's 90%, then maybe we don't need the bill. But if it's much lower, we might want to consider some alternative.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have that information
No, I know,
available, but
just
we will
provide
look for it, yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional questions for our witness? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 82. We're going to next move back to Senator Alonzo Washington for Senate Bill 151. 151, Senator Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Alonzo Washington here to speak on Senate Bill 151. This is a simple bill. Years in the past, we've eliminated the ban the box on college applications for arrests on college admissions applications. That was years ago that we did this. Now we're at a junction where we have to eliminate the box on student suspensions on the college application process. Students are asked whether or not they've been suspended, whether or not they've been expelled on college applications, whether they're on a common cause, whether they're on that common app or different places. I'm told by students that they are discouraged by even clicking that box, and sometimes they don't even complete it at all in many instances. This is a deterrent for students that really want to go to college to take themselves out of poverty or out of the circumstances that they're in. And this is something that, anyone can be suspended. You can be suspended for yelling in the classroom. You can be suspended for jumping up and down too loud. You can be suspended for almost anything in our school system, unfortunately, due to the laws that we've enacted here in the state of Maryland. And for these reasons, we are prohibiting students from getting into college, and they're trying to change their lives. I would like to eliminate this box and this question on all applications here in the state of Maryland for all applicants that want to go into college. If they want to go into college, it's because they want to turn their life around. There should be no reason why, if we're not asking if they've been arrested anymore, why are we asking if they've been suspended in the past? They can ask that question on the back end if they wanted to, after the student has been accepted into the school. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that. But this question prevents a lot of students from completing that college application process. And our goal here, as you heard from them, they want to have more money in their coffers. If they want more money, then they should accept these students into their school even more. Even more if they want to change their lives. They could have been suspended in elementary school or middle school or maybe the 9th grade. Why are we asking this question? That's preventing so many students from completing their application and being discouraged just by simply that question. You've heard from this bill. This is my 3rd time introducing it. You heard last year from a student that wanted to go to Howard University, obviously not in our school, not here in the state. And he saw that application, but he wanted to go to college so bad, that when he saw that question at Howard University, he decided to not apply and cried and said, I don't want them to deny me, because if I say yes, then they're not going to accept me. This is something we can't continue to allow our colleges and universities to do here in Maryland because it's discouraging. It's not helpful. It's information that they can act on the back end. There's other precautions that they can take if there's a violent student. There's other things that they can do for those issues. And so I'm asking this committee to find in your hearts to pass this piece of legislation to just simply remove that question from the application process here in the state of Maryland. That's all this bill does. Removes that question from the application process, and they can actually apply and ask that question on the back end. So for these reasons, Mr. Chairman, I hope that this committee finally pass Senate Bill 151 for our students, but also so you don't have to have me back here again asking this question.
Okay, well, thank you, Senator Washington. Questions for Senator Alonzo Washington? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring back up from the University System of Maryland, Candace Carrico, this time not unfavorable, but favorable with amendment. So the floor is yours. Tell us about what amendment you're suggesting.
Thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. Disciplinary records are not used in USM admission decisions. The USM supports not using these records in admissions decisions. For the purposes of campus residency and student supports, however, a disciplinary record can help the institution support and protect the student as well as potentially other students. When a student's in secondary school, educators and the support staff around the student know if the student has a special need or if they've been through a crisis that generates the need for support services. We know that students in distress may act out in ways that generate a disciplinary record. But we can use those records to help connect students to services, and that's our key concern here. Students often don't volunteer this information until they have another challenge at the higher education institution. There are rare cases of more serious violence that might pose some liability risk to us, certainly are a concern for us. But for the most part, what we're really concerned about is making sure that we proactively connect students with services. I would also say that any change of process generates a cost, which is going to be a concern to us this year as well. But overall, given our concerns, while we support the bill's intent, we respectfully request an amendment that would allow institutions of higher education to use disciplinary records in campus residency decisions and to provide supports to students. And if I may request the committee's indulgence a bit more, if and when the committee decides to move any amendments, our requested amendment has a typo that should be corrected, so education should be educate. Sorry about that. And thank you for the opportunity to comment.
We're going to start with Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Ms. Carrico, or Dr. Carrico?
Whatever. Candace is fine.
No, you've worked hard for it. If it's Dr. Carrico, welcome. Two things. First off, the General Assembly's proofreaders, I got to give them a shout out. They're excellent. They would have caught a typo if we do look at the amendment. So thank you for that. Want to reassure you. Second, in the fiscal note, I just want to read one sentence. The Maryland State Department of Education advised that a student's school disciplinary record is protected under FERPA, F-E-R-P-A, and you can do all that, and thus would not be disclosed by a local school system for the exception contained in the bill. So if you could speak to that, and I'm looking back. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
So when we ask a question about a disciplinary record, the student provides it for us. We don't get it from the State Department of Education or from the secondary school that the student attended. So a student can provide information. That's not a violation of FERPA. I think they do ask, if we find out, sort of in general, if we find out that you're disclosing anything, or if you're lying on your application, that's an issue, and about anything, But we do ask for that voluntarily. So students provide it, and it's usually in the context of, have you had any of these experiences, and tell us about them. And not all institutions ask in the same way or manage this in the same way. Again, they're sort of looking at their particular student pool, and the goal is to make sure that if students are placed in a residence hall, if they have a need for quiet, that's one issue. But there are other kinds of things, is trying to connect them to services. And, and I would also say, I don't want to distract us, but the system has a prison education program too, and very robust, and we welcome those students to our campuses when the time comes. But it's very important for them to have transition and transition services. And a lot of those folks are actually excellent students, but also very self-aware and have an ability to articulate their needs that some of our 17 and 18-year-olds don't have. And so we do ask for them to volunteer this information on the application.
And just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. If a student did misrepresent their past on the record, since it's voluntary, I forgot, I don't want to tell them, I don't want to endanger my prospects, Are there consequences if they are admitted and then something is discovered after the fact?
Well,
Under current law?
For
and then-
any kind of lying on your application about whatever, it would be a conduct case. And so there's no sort of automatic, to my knowledge, but there's a conduct process at every institution. And I have to say, conduct processes themselves are less about discipline than about education. You know, why did this occur, and what can we do to make the situation better for everybody involved?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator Washington, then Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the systems amendment would allow it to be removed from the application process, the question, because that's the issue here, that the initial thing that the student fills out does not have that question. But you're asking that, once admitted, that it is a part of the application for housing.
Yeah, but there's also, but the thing is about how to connect them to other kinds of services too.
Sure.
And so, not quite sure where that question always appears, but I think that there would be ways to frame the inquiry so it's clear that it's not used in the admissions decision.
But it would be removed. In other words, we remove the box for, so on that,
I know what
when you're
yeah.
applying,
Yeah.
that question is no longer there. I mean, I think that's the intent of.
But I don't know if the residency application is considered, in a sense, part of the overall application for college. And that's why I'm hesitant to just say, sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
But
but we
if it-
can talk further about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we go to Senator, I mean, I think that was Senator Alonzo Washington's point, is when people are filling out the application, they probably think that it's part of the admission process, as opposed to after being accepted, you know, for residency purposes. So, you know, I think this idea of deterring on the front end, because there's ambiguity, I think that seemed to be like the gist of what Senator Alonzo Washington was saying. Senator Brooks?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Doc. Question, you had mentioned something about, I guess, the risk mitigation. So there is some potential red flags there, that there's a possibility that those concerns could be addressed.
Yeah.
And to prevent any likelihood that something later on could happen
Yeah.
down the road, then there possibly be some legal actions.
Right. I mean, so like a minor example might be, you know, you find out two people regularly fight in high school. You don't want them to be roommates. But, you know, there have been a very limited number, but some more serious situations where there's a pattern of behavior that does pose some risk to that student and one or more other students on the campus. And so I think our concern is that if both were admitted and placed in proximity and, you know, other things, that would we have a legal liability? Should we have known something, you know, if there's a record somewhere?
All right, thanks. Thanks, Chair.
You know, you raised maybe some legal culpability possibilities here. Additional questions for our witness? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on Senate
Thank
Bill
you.
151. Thank you. And we're going to next go to Senator Brooks, Senate Bill 268. And Senator, you've got we've got some panelists signed up. I don't know if you want to bring them up. Are they here? I mean, I've got the names,
they
but
are.
you can bring up. I've got Linda Boyd signed up, Jacqueline Alia, Helen Rodriguez, and DZ Caguana, I believe.
Come on up. Yeah, you can.
Those are designated as part of your panel.
Oh, okay.
There are additional witnesses after that, but this is your panel.
Madison. Okay. Okay. Helen is out sick, so Madison is going to
Okay, that's
replace.
fine. Okay, well, Senator Brooks, why don't you lead off, and then we'll go to the panel, and then we'll take questions. So again, we're on Senate Bill 268.
I certainly will. Chair Feldman, Madam Vice Chair, my august committee. For the record, I'm Senator Ben Brooks, representing the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you on Senate Bill 268, is higher education undocumented students, out-of-state tuition exemption eligibility. The purpose of this bill is to expand access to higher education for undocumented students by adjusting the tax return requirements from 3 years to 2 years. In 2011, the General Assembly passed the Maryland DREAM Act, which allowed undocumented students graduating from our state's high schools and community college to qualify for in-state tuition rates. In 2018, this legislature reaffirmed that decision by extending consideration to undocumented students, allowing them to apply and receive certain state-based aid by passing the Jill Wrigley Memorial Scholarship Expansion Act. Yet, undocumented students are not enrolling in higher educational institutions at the rate lawmakers envisioned. Every year, Maryland graduates about 2,000 undocumented students, and it's estimated that 10,395 undocumented students are enrolled in Maryland higher education institutions. However, at the 15 Maryland community colleges at which non-resident tuition exemptions was used, the largest number of students to benefit from the non-resident tuition exemptions were enrolled during the fall of 2023. 511 students further at the 9 Maryland four-year institutions at which the non-resident tuition exemptions was used, the largest number of students to benefit from the non-resident tuition exemption were enrolled during the fall of 2023 semester, and that was 262 students. Current law requires undocumented families to be taxpaying Marylanders for at least 3 years. This requirement presents a substantial barrier to students who are otherwise eligible for the tuition rate exemption, but cannot provide the previous 3 years of Maryland tax returns. Most states base in-state tuition eligibility, base their state tuition eligibility on where a student went to high school, not immigration status. 24 states and the District of Columbia provide in-state tuition to the state's undocumented students. 18 states and the district provides access to financial aid. Of the 24 states, only Maryland and Virginia has tax requirements impeding undocumented students to receive both state aid and in-state tuition. However, Virginia only requires 2 years of income tax return, while Maryland still requires 3. Undocumented students work equally as hard, if not more so, than other students. 13 years ago, the legislature took measures to provide them with an equal pathway to higher education by passing the DREAM Act. The data we have now makes it clear that this track is incomplete. We must make adjustments to secure this step so that undocumented students do not continue to slip through the cracks. Our state's undocumented students deserve a truly equal opportunity to contribute to our state's growth. And for that reason, I ask for a favorable report.
Why don't we go through the panel, and then we'll take questions. I think that would be good. Tell us who you are, and then you're going to be on this 2.5-minute clock, each of you. So whoever wants to start, just put the mic in close to your mouth. Okay? Let's start.
Okay. Good afternoon, legislators and
Could you
assistants.
maybe just talk up a little? We're streaming live, so you got to talk up just a little louder.
Good afternoon, legislators and assistants. Muy buenas tardes, legisladores y asistentes. Mi nombre es Daisy Caguana y soy estudiante del último año en Dundalk High School. Estoy aquí para compartir cómo el requisito actual de 3 años de declaraciones de impuestos ha afectado a mi familia y mi educación.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daisy, and I'm a senior at Dondalk High School. I'm here to share with you my story and how this 3-year tax requirement has affected me and my family.
Y cómo reducir este requisito de 2 años, para 2 años podría transformar mi futuro y el de muchos estudiantes como yo.
Reducing the tax year to 2 years would have a great impact in not just my life, but in many other students' life similar to mine.
Cuando yo y mi familia llegamos a Maryland, hace 5 años enfrentamos importantes desafíos financieros y no entendíamos cómo funcionaba el sistema tributario.
When my family and I came to Maryland 5 years ago, we had a lot of financial challenges and a lack of information, which continue.
Aunque ahora cumplimos con nuestras obligaciones fiscales sobre las taxas, no califico para la matrícula dentro del estado porque no hemos cumplido con el requisito de los 3 años.
As soon as we find out how taxes worked, my family and I started paying taxes, but due to the fact that we didn't know when we first got here, I don't qualify for the Maryland Dream Act.
Esto ha sido un gran obstáculo, no solo para mí, sino para mi familia, ya que me pide acceder a programas de asistencia para la matrícula y becas que son fundamentales para aliviar la carga financiera de mi familia.
Okay. This poses extremely challenges for my family because not being able to qualify for in-state tuition creates a bigger burden, and also not being able to qualify for in-state financial aid.
Sin estos recursos, tendría que pagar la matrícula como estudiante fuera del estado, lo cual no es posible debido a nuestra situación económica junto a mi familia.
If the tax year is not reduced, I would have to pay international student rate, which is almost 3 times as much as in-state tuition, which would make it impossible for me to continue in my higher education journey.
Reducir el requisito de declaraciones fiscales a 2 años marcaría una gran diferencia, permitirá a estudiantes como yo a calificar para asistencia de matrícula mucho antes.
So I ask for you to pass this bill because it would have an impact not just in me, but in many other students who would be able to qualify for in-state tuition.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Obviously, we didn't use the clock because, you know, the interpreter and such, but let's go through the other panelists and then we'll take questions. Tell us who you are.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Allier. I am a high school counselor in Baltimore County, serving a school with about 1,200 students, and about 1/4 of my students are undocumented. It is my job to connect students with a path post-high school. If a student is undocumented, I cannot send them into the workforce. I cannot send them into the military. I can't send them to trade programs with a work component. For many of my students, higher education is the only option for me to send them to after high school, and that is only if they have 3 years of taxes. Last year, I came and spoke to the committee about my student, who we called John, who wanted to be a teacher. The bill was not passed last year. He came to visit me last week and let me know he's working as a bartender to be able to afford 1 class at a time at CCBC, because for him it costs $1,800 for 1 class versus the about $500 it would have cost if he was to be charged as an in-county student. He's being charged as an international student because he moved to Maryland from Arizona and didn't have enough years of Maryland taxes to be able to take advantage of this. He's still very perseverant and is planning to still become a teacher and work as much as he can to pay for classes and hopefully be able to take advantage of in-county tuition and Maryland state financial aid once he has the 3 years of taxes. I currently on my desk have a list of students this year who are in similar positions who will be able to go to a 4-year or 2-year school after graduation if this bill passes, and if not, my job is to stay in touch with them as much as they can and try to provide the support after high school once they do have the 3 years of taxes. One of those students is Gus, he just got into Micah last week and is very excited about that. He's an amazing artist and would like to continue that education. However, without Maryland State financial aid, there is no way for him to be able to afford his higher education. So for this reason, for the list of students I have on my desk right now who would be impacted by this bill, I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 268.
Okay, thank you. Go to the end of the table.
Thank you, Chair. Chair and Vice Chair. I won't take much of your time. We filed our testimony, but I'm here on behalf of the Episcopal Church.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Reverend Linda Boyd, and I'm here on behalf of the Episcopal Church nationally and the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland. We strongly believe that everyone is a child of God that deserves equal dignity and respect. Giving access to higher education certainly fills that bill, and we all know the benefits of higher education, and it's a way to get ahead. I mean, my grandfather came over and wasn't able to go to college, and my mother supported her family during the Depression and couldn't go to college. So I was the first generation in my family to go to college. And I can tell you the benefit that it's given me and my children. So it makes it just logical that it brings them into society. It makes them feel respected. It helps in every way possible. So I urge that you vote favorably on this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Brooks, you mentioned at the outset somebody was under the weather. Who did you say was not here?
Helen was up here.
Helen's not there. Okay. Okay, so we'll open up for this panel for Senator Brooks questions. Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick remark. I want to make sure that folks in the audience, as well as our witnesses and stuff, are aware that legislative scholarships are available, and many of us distribute them to people regardless of their citizenship status, language skills, or anything to qualify people who apply. I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for my 187 colleagues, but I require essays. The top people get in-person interviews, and they've got to be thoughtful with good grades and community engagement and all that, but we do not ask about or consider citizenship status. So it is another source of funding, and so for the person who is working as a bartender, perhaps this would be an option to help defray some of the expenses that he's dealing with. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And even more so, a great reason for us to support this, because you have to be eligible for in-state tuition to be able to qualify for those. Yes. No? Oh.
We don't have to have it. What's the source of dispute here? So as to the scholarship, I don't want to get too far afield on this other topic of legislative
But people should do their homework. It's important that everybody, es importante de saber quiénes están sus legislators. Hay bastante dólares quienes available. Sin pregunta de dónde está ciudadano. Close? Understand a little? Okay. All right. I tried. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Do you want to respond? I want to go to Senator Washington after you, Senator Brooks. Go on.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Washington, question?
Thank you for this bill. I'm on the part-time faculty at Micah, so I'm happy and hope that I get to see your student. Sociology, not art, but thank you for the bill, Senator. I have a question about residency, and if this is just for general purposes, how long does it take for one to establish residency if you are following the traditional path? I mean, do we know, is it a year, 2 years? Could you tell me?
Yeah, it's 12 months.
Unrelated to this, just in general.
12 months to be in state, yes.
Okay, so a documented student could come from another state 2 years, come to another state, live in Maryland for a year, and then would qualify for in-state tuition. Is that true?
I'm sorry, you said documented or undocumented?
I'm making it our general practice, so not related to a person's document, undocumented, saying this is a documented student. So let's just say my son. So we lived in Ohio, we moved to Maryland last year. How long would it take for my child to qualify to get in-state tuition?
12 months.
Okay. All right, so that's the 12 months.
We have
All
the
right.
specific verbiage.
And then in terms of being eligible for financial aid or to figure, same thing, it would be 12 months? Same, okay, it's okay, I made the point with the 12 months. And I think I wanted to also add, I was here, that was my first year, my second year in the House of Delegates when we passed a number of things, and that was the DREAM Act. And not only was it passed by this legislature, but it was ratified by the public by a very high margin. So it's not just our law, but it was the will of the people of our state that we do this. Isn't that so? Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional questions for, yes, we've got Senator Simoner.
Hi, thanks for coming today. I know we passed a law several years ago, the Promise Scholarship, which allows basically to pay for the full scholarship of community college. Have you availed that?
So in order to qualify for that, you have to complete the MISFA or the MHEC 1 app, which is the application similar to the FAFSA for undocumented students. But to complete that application, you need to have 3 years of taxes. It all falls within the DREAM Act.
So would this update that as well, this bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Senator Augustine, did you have a question?
It's just a point of clarification. The change, although you all are talking about it as it relates to undocumented, this would be a universal change for folks who are coming from on eligibility requirements. Isn't that so?
No.
As I'm reading it in here, how is it uniquely for undocumented folks?
It's in the language of the bill is specific to undocumented students. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah. So documented students would complete the FAFSA and be able to apply for college and not have the hindrance of their immigration status. Undocumented students can't fill out the FAFSA. They fill out the MISFA for state aid, and then they have to fill out follow-up paperwork with their school under the DREAM Act based on their immigration status.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we can clarify the language here. I mean, we don't have to get, the intent of the bill is to limit it to just the undocumented situation, not broader along the lines that Senator Augustine, just so we know the intent of the bill. Okay. Is that accurate, Senator Brooks? Is that the intent of the bill? Okay. Okay, additional questions for Senator Brooks or for the panel before we've got several additional witnesses. So thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, I'm going to call several other folks. Is Madison Prado here? Madison, come on up. Kenzie Funk. Is Kenzie here? Okay, Charlamar Douglas. Is she here? Okay, Elena Walsh. Elena. Okay, let's see. Sierra Hart. And we've got one seat, and there's one final witness signed up, so this works out perfectly. Crisale de Los Santos. Is she here? Okay. That's the extent of the witnesses who signed up, all signed up favorable. And so who wants to start? You guys can decide. Okay, I'm looking straight. Let's start in the middle because the mic is right by you. And you're going to tell us your name, and everybody's going to be under each of you 2.5 minutes, okay? So why don't you start right in the middle?
I'll be translating for her.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But make sure you, whoever's speaking, put that mic close up so everybody can hear.
Ellen? Good morning. My name is Madison Prado, and I'm a senior at Dundle High School and a participant in Casas Escolera program. Last year, I interned at a community development corporation, which inspired me to continue my educational journey. As a recent immigrant, my family has faced challenges that have made it difficult to meet the current requirement of 3 years of tax failing to quality for in-state tuition. This has delayed my ability to access affordable education, and it's a barrier I share with many students in similar situations. Reducing the tax filing requirement to 2 years will help students like me move forward with our education without unnecessary delays. It will allow us to contribute to the workforce, use our language skill to support diverse communities, and bridge gaps in places like school, where many families face language barriers. Investing in youth in an investment in Maryland's future. If this bill is passed, it will help many students who are ready to contribute and grow, creating a more educated and inclusive workforce. I urge you to prioritize this bill to give students like me the opportunity to reach our full potential. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who's going to go next? How about? Okay, good. Tell us who you are.
Hi, good morning, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Elena Walsh, and I am a college and career counselor in Baltimore, Maryland. I would like to share why I strongly support Senate Bill 268. Currently, the only viable options for undocumented students are to work at low-paying jobs or to go to college after high school, as apprenticeships and the governor's service year, as well as the military, are not options for these students in many cases. College is the obvious choice. However, many of these students are unable to pursue this degree because of the current requirements placed upon them by the DREAM Act. Students and their parents need to have filed taxes for 3 years preceding the student's high school graduation date to be eligible for the state financial aid and in-state tuition rates. Without 3 years of taxes, students are left with next to no options because any college is cost prohibitive, and many private scholarships actually require that a FAFSA or a MISFA is filed to be eligible for those funds as well. It is honestly incomprehensible to me that we dangle this amazing opportunity in front of hardworking students and then make it exceedingly difficult for them to access it. Take Luis, the valedictorian who graduated the valedictorian who witnessed the murders of both of his parents in his home country, who went from speaking no English to earning 4s and 5s on AP exams in just 3.5 years in this country. And he has the most incredible mind of any student that I have ever worked with in my 16 years as an educator. He dreamed of becoming an environmental engineer. Instead of changing the world, he is currently, a world that's currently and literally on fire. He is working as a gas station attendant as he awaits his asylum approval. He could not file 3 years of taxes because he was not working all 3 years that he was here, and his parents couldn't file them because they were both murdered. Take Selena, whose mother could not afford to pay the accountant's fee for 3 years, only one, and she missed the MISFA deadline because of that. She now works in a factory when she had plans to earn a degree in computer science. Finally, take Esteban, who moved here from California. He came to the United States at 6 months old, has known no other country as one but the United States, and he moved here ahead of his mother to live with his aunt so there would be no disruption to his high school career. His mom followed a few years later, but was not here for 3 full years, so he also missed the MISFA deadline because of that. He has DACA, and he currently works at a catering company now when he would have been a nurse as of last spring. It's imperative that we allow these students to continue to help the Maryland workforce as well as themselves and their family. I ask for a favorable report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, come on.
Good morning. My name is Sierra Hart. I currently serve as the Assistant State Director of State Advocacy and Engagement for EdTrust, and I am here on behalf of MARI, which is the Maryland Alliance for Racial Equity in Education. Thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, committee members, and bill sponsors. The Maryland Alliance for Racial Equity in Education, a coalition of education advocacy, civil rights, and community-based organizations committed to eliminating racial disparities in Maryland's education system, is pleased to submit favorable testimony in support of SB 268 as introduced by Senator Brooks. Maryland students of all racial and socioeconomic backgrounds deserve equitable access to pursuing higher education opportunities, and we value our state's extension of in-state tuition privileges to undocumented students who meet specific criteria under current law. SB 268, as introduced, would amend and improve the law to lower the 3-year requirement that an individual or individual's parents or legal guardian must provide documentation of Maryland income tax return filings to the taxable 2 years immediately before the year income tax requirement by 1 year. This would lessen current barriers to post-secondary opportunities and, by extension, increase educational and professional prospects and improve socioeconomic mobility for Maryland's undocumented students, including DACA recipients and their families. A February 2023 analysis by EdTrust of key college and enrollment access policies for the 15 U.S. states with the largest share of undocumented students, including 13 that currently extend in-state resident tuition to those students, found that no other states in this cohort but Maryland and Virginia require undocumented families to show proof of state income tax returns for student eligibility. Even then, Virginia law only requires 2 years of tax evidence. In contrast, the other 11 states with the largest shares of undocumented students granting in-state resident tuition access to these students do not require such a burden of proof. Thus, while SB 268 represents a step in the right direction to easing roadblocks for undocumented students, who are often students of color and from low-income families, to access the promises of higher education, MARI encourages further legislative consideration, whether by amendment to this bill or future legislation, of removing this burden altogether like leading peer states. As your committee considers SB 268 next week, we hope that you will keep our testimony and the students and families this policy impacts in mind. Removing these barriers to higher education for undocumented students in Maryland is not just an act of compassion, but it also will increase their chances of liability. As a former educator, I thank you for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to the other side of the table.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair Feldman and members of the committee. My name is Grisalis de los Santos, and I serve as the CASA Central Maryland Director. Prior to this role, I was the Youth Education Program Manager for CASA, and I also worked at City School as a para-educator. I'm here today in favor of this bill, it's really emotional for me because when I came to Baltimore, I didn't have to face this challenge, but I did used to run a student club at the high school that I went to, and many of the students did not have the possibility to even go to college until, the MESFA was opened up for undocumented students, and even though it was opened up, there are a lot of students that are left behind. Yesterday, I was talking to one of our students who couldn't be here because she was sick. So instead of reading my speech, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this student. Her name is Montserrat. She graduated from National Academy Foundation 2 years ago. She came here with her mother fleeing from domestic violence back in her home country, Honduras. And and they've been here for only 2 years, but she graduated 2 years ago from high school, and she's ready to get her associate's degree already from Baltimore City Community College. And although she has achieved this milestone, when I met her, she spoke no English at all, and now she's proficient, taking all her classes without any support. And she's ready to move on, and she's trying to pursue a career in the medical field. But because she doesn't meet this requirement, she's going to have to take a gap year until she's able to meet it. So I really want you guys to think about students like her, and students like many of the students that are here today. But I will share my journey learning English and getting the opportunities that I had was really challenging, because we have to catch up, not just to the language, but a lot to, be able to proceed. And a lot of students come with their own lived experiences, which are so enriching. And a lot of the times I'm in room talking to principals and school administration, and how are we going to meet the gaps of not having folks who speak the language to support our families. And I think that, passing this bill is really going to support with that. I see a lot of the folks that come through CASA to apply for in-state tuition or to apply for the DREAM Act and getting support, working at schools and hospitals, when we go to churches. So, passing this bill, it is helping the students, but it's also helping us in Maryland to keep the growth and celebrating the diversity that we have within the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, which brings us to our final witness. Tell us who you are.
Thank you, Chair Feldman and Vice Chair Kagan, members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Kenzie Funk, and I'm here on behalf of Strong Schools Maryland as a policy advocate in strong support of Senate Bill 268. We appreciate Senator Brooks for introducing this important piece of legislation to expand in-state tuition eligibility for undocumented students. Currently, many undocumented students are excluded from accessing in-state tuition rates, despite having lived in Maryland for many years or most, if not all, of their lives. Out-of-state tuition rates are often 2 to 3 times higher than in-state tuition rates, creating significant barriers that prevent students from pursuing or accessing post-secondary education opportunities. According to Higher Ed Immigration, around 2,000 undocumented students graduate from Maryland schools each year. And as it stands, this exclusion places an undue financial burden on this student group, many of whom are Black and brown or from low-income families. These barriers deny students the ability to pursue post-secondary pathways of their choice, which limits socioeconomic mobility and accessibility of opportunity. The blueprint for Maryland's future envisions equitable access to college and career readiness opportunities for all students through Pillar 3. Aligning tuition policies is an important step towards expanding these opportunities. Doing so can result in positive impacts for student groups. In states that have moved towards or adopted tuition equity laws for undocumented students, such policies often results in reduced high school dropout rates, increasing number of graduates pursuing post-secondary opportunities, and generally raises student and familial incomes. Undocumented students are an integral part of Maryland student populations and deserve accessibility in choosing their post-secondary path. Especially in our current and political educational landscape, we must prioritize protecting and supporting these student groups. Strong Schools Maryland firmly believes in creating a public education system where every student has the opportunity to thrive. Senate Bill 268 is a meaningful step towards realizing this promise. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. For these reasons, Strong Schools Maryland urges a favorable report on Senate Bill 268. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all the witnesses. Take questions now for any of the witnesses. Okay, seeing none, that concludes the bill. Oh, yes, Senator Brooks, yes.
Yeah, we'll say, the difference in tuition for in-state versus
Here, get a little closer to the mic.
Okay, the difference in tuition for in-state versus non is about $14,000 on average per year. So we're talking about a tidy sum, and the fiscal note on this will be nominal. Thanks.
Okay, additional questions for either Senator Brooks or any of the panelists? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing. Senate Bill 268 concludes the bill hearings for today. Just 2 quick notes before we completely adjourn. Number one, a reminder that at 2 o'clock today, we actually have a joint briefing on the topic of electric vehicles, where the state sits infrastructure-wise, advanced clean cars 2. So that's in the joint hearing room with the Environment and Transportation Committee. So that fancy new joint hearing room, we will be able to participate in that. And then secondly, last night, the Central Committee of Baltimore City did make a recommendation to the governor to fill the seat vacated by Senator Carter, and that person will likely be taking that seat at the end. And so we will be, again, full membership soon. So with that, hopefully I'll see a good amount of you at 2 o'clock in the joint hearing room. This meeting is hereby adjourned.